I learned how to drive from the most impatient man in the world, my dad. To illustrate this, my old man would intentionally never drink a beer down to an empty can because he didn't want to keep the next one waiting too long. One thing sticks out from the few lessons he gave me. He would say, "Son, don't concentrate on the bumper in front of you. You have to drive with the whole picture of things in front of you." This advice somehow embedded itself deep into my subconscious, as I would find out 3 years later when I was faced with a hard decision. In 1987, I was living in Santa Barbara, California, attending the local community college. I was 18 years old. One night I went down to a local bar called Joe's. It was a local hotspot at the time. This joint was where you could meet a mature woman. I had my fake ID and it was on. I met a group of ladies and started hanging with them. They were all drinking Cuba Libres, rum and coke. I didn't even know what was in the drink and could barely pronounce the name. After a few, I excused myself to go to the restroom, and as I stood up, the entire room shifted 45 degrees. Oh boy, I'm drunk, but I managed to get to and from the restroom with maximum effort. I knew two things at this point. One, that I was drunk, and two, none of these mature ladies had an interest in me, so I bounced. I had a red 1974 VW Rabbit with the 4-speed manual transmission. I knew it was a bad idea to drive. This was the era of MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And when the police would bring a total car to high schools and college campuses to shock and impress upon young adults the hazards of driving drunk, I knew better. I believed I was being careful as I was driving home. It was a warm coastal night with a slight breeze in which you could smell the ocean. I was on a residential street and I saw the rear backup lights of a car signaling that it was backing out of a driveway. The alcohol impaired my depth perception and my ability to reason whether I should wait for the vehicle or pass by. I downshifted, punched the gas, and ripped the rear bumper off the vehicle backing out of the driveway. The impact left my Rabbit inoperable. Nonetheless, my first impulse after the crash was to flee the scene. I didn't want to face the consequences, and running away seemed like the best option for me. I punched the gas. The engine was revving high and loud. It felt like I was running away speeding 100 miles per hour through the residential streets. I was panicked, scared, and afraid. But in reality, the vehicle was barely moving. Then I heard a tap on the window and a voice, "Turn your engine off. The car isn't going anywhere." I looked up, and it was the owner of the wrecked car walking along the side of my car. I drifted my car to the curb and got out and sat down next to it. I put my head in my hands, waiting for the police. Moments later, the owner of the damaged vehicle sat next to me and said, "Son, are you okay?" I replied, "Yes, and I'm sorry." He asked if I had been drinking. I said yes. He asked if I had a driver's license. I said yes. Insurance? No. He excused himself and came back with his wife, and she then asked me about my parents and if they could help with the damages. I said no. I further explained to them that I was an out-of-state student with few resources attending community college, but I did have a part-time job at Pep Boys Auto Parts store. They both excused themselves and left me on the curb with my thoughts. I thought about running briefly, but I became overwhelmed with the promise I made to my mother. I told her that I was going to college to make something of myself. You see, there's a hard line of alcohol and drug abuse that runs through my family, and I knew it would have broken my mother's heart if she thought I had succumbed to it. In that moment, I could see the big picture. Me graduating from college, becoming a professional, being a responsible and respected man, making my mother proud. The husband and wife returned, and explained to me that they were not going to call the police for fear that it would change my life for the worse. They offered me a deal. They would get a damage estimate and I would have to make installments until the debt was paid. The husband gave me a ride home and explained to me that his wife felt in her spirit that I had the character beyond the accident to do more with my life. I agreed. He picked me up the next morning. We went to the parts yard and he purchased a new bumper. I made my first installment until paid off. Thank you to the couple that saw more in me than just a drunk, out-of-state student.